Yeah. Hey, I'm Tommy, and you're on the lifeboat. How are you? Hold 1 second, everybody. Hold 1 second. Hey, sorry about that. What's happening, people? I'm Tommy, and you're on the boat. Let's see who we got. Bear with me, people. Caroline in Canada, how are you? Cindy G, good to see you. Hello, Kristen Melinda, Lisa Miller, Cindy, Barbara Aldrich. How are you, Barbara? Hope the surgeries are going well. Jane, good to see you. Hey, Cindy G. Let's see. We about caught up? Maybe. Caroline in Canada, how are you? All right, people. I was actually trying to pull some stuff up for you today, and it doesn't want to play the game with me. Maybe we'll try it on the iPad because it doesn't want to. Hey, Tommy Bird, good to see you. Sandy Wendy, how are you? So I want to talk about the justice system. I got a lot of emails recently that asked me very specifically to why I wasn't doing more with true crime. And a couple of people said, look, that's your wheelhouse, right? That's what you do well. It's what people come by to see, that kind of thing. And there's probably some truth to that, you know. I'm disillusioned in a very big way with the legal system in the United States of America. The Karen Reed murder trial has been going on now for weeks, and a lot of you have been following the Karen Reed murder trial. And there are some takeaways from this. If you have anything on the ball, then there are some takeaways. And one of the first takeaways is this. Today, in the Karen Reed murder trial, we saw some expert testimony where they took a brand new Lexus SUV, the same kind that was owned by Karen Reed, and they wrecked it. They wrecked it into a crash test dummy, and it would hit his arm. It would break the light, and they would see how the light broke. And they would try it at 15 miles an hour, at 25 miles an hour, 27 miles an hour, and they worked their way up because 36 is supposedly how fast Karen Reed was driving when she allegedly hit John O'Keefe. Sorry, people. Kevin Arthur in Lakeland, Florida. Good to see you. So they started to go through all of these different experiments. Now, each time they broke a window, a tail light, or didn't break a tail light, right? Even if the tail light was not broken, each time this went down, they had to replace the tail light, put another one on, right? Even if it didn't break, they had to replace the entire assembly. What do you think it cost to replace the taillight assembly on a Lexus SUV? Huh? Honestly, I looked it up, and the cheapest I could find was $260. So every time they did one of these, $260, $260. They also had to buy a Lexus SUV. What are you looking at? 45 grand, 50 grand? Maybe they got it used, 35, 40. You're starting to see the moral of this story. Karen Reed has put together a dream team. She has some of the best lawyers on planet Earth representing her. Yeah. It's taking the best of the best attorneys to represent her. What would have happened if Karen Reed was not involved in the financial district, if she had not been a tenured college professor who has done very well in life? What would have happened if she had a public defender? Huh? What would have happened if she had a public defender? Do you think the public defender would have bought a Lexus SUV and done 10 collision tests with it? Huh? It wouldn't have happened, right? Wouldn't have happened. In fact, she would have gotten convicted at the first trial, and she would be doing life in prison. Plain and simple. Maybe she'd have gotten a little bit less, but they were charging her with premeditated murder. Right? She tried to run this guy over. That's what happened. Right? So this seems to me to be indicative of the legal system in this country. You know, they say that there's a two-tiered legal system, and there's a lot of truth to that. If you can't afford a defense, well, then you're fucked, aren't you? Sorry, but you are. Karen Read is where she is because she had the money, right? She had the money to put up for the best defense money could buy. Still only got a mistrial the first time around. There is an interesting thing that happened a couple of days ago. When they went to tow, Karen Read's, hold on one second, people. I'm terribly sorry about that. So when Karen Read's car, before it got picked up, she drove it over to her family's house, right? So they had to go get Karen Read's car. Now, keep in mind, Karen Read's car had already slammed into John O'Keefe, according to the prosecutors. I cut this down and I trimmed it. But what you're looking at right there, I wish I could have put this up, but it didn't want to let me. That is Karen Read's actual car being pulled up onto a flatbed tow truck. This is unusual. Do you see that right there? You know what that is, people? Huh? That right there is a taillight assembly. It's a taillight assembly that is showing the color red because they had just put the brakes on, which is interesting as hell because that entire light assembly is gone. It was destroyed. Allegedly, it was destroyed when Karen Read hit John O'Keefe. Yet she drove it from there 60 miles away to her parents' house. And somehow the light still looks perfect there. How does that happen? Well, it happens because the prosecution and the cops broke that light and then took it back and sprinkled it at the crime scene because this is what it looked like after it left the freaking crime scene, right? After the crime scene had already been, that's what we're looking at. That, people, is a taillight. That is a taillight working. Now, we saw it in film. We actually watched that pull up. We saw the brake lights engaged. You're going to tell me that Brennan doesn't know about that? You're going to tell me Brennan didn't see that video? Oh, he did. He did. In fact, he did some tap dancing afterwards to explain why if you got it at the right angle, it might show there's no effing taillight. How would it show it no matter what angle that you happen to be filming at? But see, he's going to tap dance because this scumbag knows that Karen Read's innocent. This guy's seeing the same evidence we are. He knows that that taillight assembly was in perfect shape before they brought it to the Sally Port. And when it got to the Sally Port, which is like it's a small garage where you let inmates out before they go into prison. It's a terrible word because you don't hear it very often outside of prison. Castles, I guess, at Sally Ports as well, but it's where you first pull in. There's a gate and you get by the gate and you're in there. We know that they flipped around the tape, so we couldn't tell which side of the car was what. They said it was an accident, right? Then they said that there was a clip of film missing. In the first trial, a cop testified. Actually, let me rephrase that. She testified in front of the FBI, right? Not at the first trial, but in front of the feds when they were investigating. And she said that Trooper Proctor and Buchanan spent an unreasonable amount of time in the Sally Port. She said it was an unusually long period of time, a suspiciously long period of time. Since then, she's changed it completely and said, that didn't happen. I got a new timeline and I realized that it was a false memory that I had created. Are you hearing this shit? A false memory that she created. You're going to tell me Brennan doesn't know that she's innocent? If she saw the taillight assembly in one piece, then he knows this is rigged. But it doesn't mean shit because he's going to keep prosecuting an innocent person. You see, his job is to get a conviction. He doesn't care whether or not Karen Read is innocent or not. He's going to get a conviction. And the only reason she's not going to get convicted is because Alan Jackson walks on water, right? It's because all of the defense team that they've got, the best of the best. They have hired crash reconstructionists, the best in the business, went and bought a car, right? And a crash test dummy of the right weight and continued to run this car into the crash test dummy again and again at different speeds in slow motion, super slow motion. You think if I was on trial and I had a public defender, I could say to the public defender, hey, do me a favor. Go buy you a Lexus, right? Get you a crash test dummy, set up a super slow motion camera and film this impact at 10 different speeds to prove that this is bullshit. That doesn't happen, folks. It doesn't happen. You get a public defender, she's already in prison for a crime she didn't commit. So when they say that an estimated 6% of people in prison are probably innocent, sounds stupid the first time you hear it, right? You go, come on, man. Come on, it's ridiculous. Is it? You get a public defender, you're not hiring expert witnesses. You're not recreating crashes, but this is what was necessary to prove that this college professor wasn't trying to kill anybody. She was guilty of being shit-faced, shaffazed, pardon me. Karen, good to see you. Welcome, New Jersey. Good to have you. This is BS. And this is one effing case in the United States where the person wrongly convicted had the funds, the finances, the ability to put on a winning defense. And Turtle Boy, you guys know who Turtle Boy is. If Turtle Boy didn't break this case, even with all the money she's got, Karen Reed would be in prison right now. Is that justice? Well, no, justice is something that you buy in the United States of America, right? You buy your justice. People are pissed that I'm not covering the P. Diddy trial. A couple of people have said, this is the only thing you're good at, which is, hey, Tommy Bird, which is not necessarily a nice thing to say about me, but there are people that believe that's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm good at. Well, unfortunately, I don't believe in it anymore. Not even a little. I don't believe in it. Not even a little. And that sucks. But I tell stories from my past and people go, come on, that's bullshit. This is a true story, right? True story. I admit to the things that I've done in my life. I don't run from them. I tell you what I did. Hey, Clifton, good to see you. I was running to go meet a heroin dealer at an apartment complex that I lived in. And I ran and my foot went into a 2-foot hole that they had dug. They were planning on putting in a fence post, but they called it a day and they didn't cover the hole. And my leg went into it. And I injured myself badly. My knee was about that big. And I went to an emergency room and they took a lot of pictures of my knee and they took some images of it and they gave me some dope, some pain medication. And I decided not to press charges. I talked to them on the phone and I described to them and I lied. I said to them, I work for such and such a company. And I did. I worked as a public speaker, but I had been laid off about 3 months earlier. And I lied. And I said, yeah, I work as a public speaker. And they said, what do you make? And I said, about 35 grand a month. And I take 3 months off, right? I want to be, but I decided to not go through with it. Not because I was afraid of not winning or anything else, but to be really honest, I was so spun out on dope that I couldn't manage to get myself to hearings. Hello, Audra in Denver. Good to see you. Sammy Sue, welcome. So nothing came of it. I didn't pursue it. And then I'm walking through downtown, oddly enough, on my way to meet another person to buy heroin. And the police pull up from like 3 sides and they hop out of the car. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have any warrants. What the hell do they want from me? They wanted me for fraud, right? Insurance fraud. And I said, I didn't get any money. I didn't even ask for any money. They said, no, but when you did the interview, you claimed that you were working and you weren't. Now, if I wanted to spend 10 grand on an attorney, there's no way I get convicted of that. There's no way. There were no affidavits. I didn't go to court. I didn't do anything to try to bring this to fruition. So But I got picked up and I got brought into a cell, and they pulled me out for an interrogation. And I said, man, this was years ago. She said, no, it'll be 2 years tomorrow. You know why that's important? Because they got 2 years to charge me for that. So they waited until one day, right, before it was too late, and they charged me. And the woman said, very attractive, kind woman, kind as in the kind that's going to get you in trouble. But she said to me, if you plead guilty to this today, I can get it so that there's no, you won't have to do any time. I said, well, what am I going to have to do? I got to do probation or drug court or some shit. She said, no, you plead guilty today, no harm, no foul. We give you nothing, right? You pay no fines, no anything. You just admit you did it and you plead guilty. And I'm a drug addict. I don't want to spend 2 days in jail, right? Because I can't get dope in jail and I'm going to get sick. So I look at the woman and I say, so I signed this piece of paper and this is over, right? No harm, no foul. I walk out the door. She said, absolutely. So I signed that piece of paper. I didn't rip anybody off. There was no fraud. I didn't get $1. But I pled guilty. And the reason I pled guilty is I had a criminal record from here to Boston, right? And all of it, I mean, almost with very few exceptions, all of it was theft. So I look like a thief. So if I go in there, no one's going to give a shit whether or not I got any money. It's going to look like I attempted to. So I pled guilty. No big deal. What difference does it make? You got 4 felonies. You got 8 felonies, right? What difference does it make? Fast forward, right, a few years, and I get arrested for something I did do. I get arrested for bank robbery, and I'm guilty. And I've told you about that, the sentencing guideline sheets. And the bottom is your criminal history, and the top is what you've been charged with. So they came back and they said, your criminal history is a 6. It's as high as it can be. You know what put me from a 5 to a 6? That freaking thing I pled guilty to. I didn't do it, but I pled guilty because I was a criminal. And she looked me in the face and said, hey, if we go to a jury trial, you're hung, right? You can't defend yourself. You're a scumbag, right? Kind of like Tommy Scovel in The Long Con, right? There's no defending yourself. You're a piece of shit. It's been litigated. You're no longer a good human being. People that get trapped in the legal system. I'm out now, right? I'm out, right? I'm out. 11 years. No trouble whatsoever in 11 years. They killed my paper. I even got a note from the government telling me what a great guy I am. And then every person that saw The Long Con who thinks I actually try to rip off women calls Homeland Security to tell them that. And the guy from Homeland Security was cooler than the other side of your pillow. He called me and said, this is ridiculous. These are internet trolls. And he used the term Karens. I'm not fond of it, but apparently everybody that called was a woman. And he said, none of them claim to have even met you personally. They just say you're ripping off other people. And he said, I got nothing. There's nothing that you've done. There's no crimes. There's no anything. I said, then why are we talking? And he said, because every time somebody does this, we're going to have to talk. Are you shitting me? So I paid my debt to society, right? But it doesn't matter. Because anybody that wants to just, right? Anyone who wants to just poke at Tommy, make a video about me, do whatever, it gets to the right people, and I'm going to get a phone call. Hey, Mom, good to see you. We saw Smokes. Good to see you. I'm going to get a phone call. Hey, you want to come down here and answer some questions? This is my life now going forward, right? And you can think I'm a scumbag. You got my permission. But I've not done anything that I can be in trouble for. Doesn't mean that the idiots online aren't spilling into my life. And that's not what the purpose of this show is, I promise you. But the purpose of this show is to highlight, right? Is to highlight just how broken this system is, right? Karen Reed's the perfect example. The number of things that have come out in this trial. The guy who ran the Karen Reed investigation the first time, Michael Proctor, when they went out to the crime scene, dead man laying on the lawn, And all of these professional law enforcement people didn't go, maybe we ought to go inside and ask anybody if something happened to him inside the building. Everybody who got there the first day said, all of them, boy, somebody beat the shit out of this guy. They beat the shit out of him. He got a fight, got beat up bad. Brennan and his people, that's the prosecutor, they did the same tests. And you know what they found? They found that no matter how hard you run into this dude, break in the tail light. No, you can't simulate skin perfectly, can you? But you can simulate the exact same sweatshirt the guy was wearing pretty easy. And that glass didn't even rip through the sweatshirt, not at any speed. Now, Brennan knew that. See, he had those tests done before they ever showed up for trial. So he knew that. So he has to sit in the room with other prosecutors and go, okay, well, we got to bullshit this, right? We don't want to talk about this. See, those are dog bites. And he knows it. He knows it. He knows it wasn't caused by those lights. He knows that. But he's going to go in there and lie anyway. How's that? He's going to go in there and lie. Do you know how we found the picture I just showed you of the taillight intact? Because one cop who didn't know Proctor, who didn't know Buchanan, who wasn't friends with the Albert clan, right? He's not part of this thick blue wall. And they asked him a question. They said, did you get a look at the back of the car at any point? He said, yeah, no, I got a good look at it. They said, how long did you see it? Was it fleeting? He said, no, I waited for the truck. I looked at it for about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. They said, how'd the taillight look? He said, it was a broken piece. He described it as about 2 inches long. 6 inches long and about 2 inches wide. So not that big and about that wide. But that's not what we saw. If you followed this case, the entire assembly is completely destroyed. Gone, blown out. In fact, you know what's funny? The lights aren't even there. The lights aren't there. You see the bulbs inside? They broke, right? Because that's what will happen when somebody runs into you at top speed, right? It's going to break those bulbs. And that makes sense. I won't argue that point. But if the bulbs are broken, why is that light lit up? Huh? The bulbs are broken. How's that lighting up? I'll tell you how. Because the bulbs were broken by cops at the Sally Port later. And that's why we're missing film. That's why there's a section of film missing. Right? That's why it was turned around. And when the section of film is missing, there are two guys standing right at the light that got destroyed. And they disappear as if magically. Well, because they had to get rid of the part where they were smacking the shit out of that car. You don't think the prosecution knows about this? Doesn't matter if they're guilty or innocent. See, their job is to convict her. So when they look at that and go, oh my God, the taillight was assembled. That doesn't matter. Because we're sure as shit not going to make a cop guilty. I did time with no less than a dozen guys who were in prison for 12 years, right? 12-year sentences. And that 12-year sentence is for lying to the FBI. You go into the FBI, you sit down and you lie to them, that's a 12-year sentence. Unless you have a mother-loving badge. Because every day, cops get on the stand and lie. It's already happened in the Karen Reed trial a dozen times. A cop will say, I didn't remember it correctly. I changed. If you're an inmate, if you're a guy arrested, you're getting perjury. But see, we have a broken system. And the judge doesn't have the balls, right, to have a cop come up in front of her for perjury because she has to deal with these cops on the next case. And she has to deal with the prosecutors on the next case. And if you get out of whack with them, things are tough. So they're never going to prosecute, a cop for lying. I'm sorry, hold one second. So if the cops can lie and the inmates can't, is this a Google system? I'll tell you another story. I got called in for the bank robberies. You guys know my best friend's name is Jack. I'm sitting in a room where I've been with the FBI and one cop, two FBI agents and a cop in an interrogation room for about 7 hours. And I said, I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave because I was not under arrest. I said, I'm out of here. This is taking too long. And the guy said, just wait 1 minute. Give us 1 minute. I said, all right. And he came back in the room and he said, we have Jack. I won't say his last name. We have Jack 2 rooms down. He's been talking to us for 3 hours. And he told us that he's not taking the beef on this. He told us that you robbed these banks. He's going to testify against you, this and that. It was a lie, right? Josh didn't tell him that. But you see, they're allowed to lie to me to try to get me to confess. They can say, we just talked to your best friend, and your best friend listed all of the crimes that you did. He's testifying against you. How is it it's legal for them to effing lie in that situation? But if we do, it's a 12-year sentence. Do you think that's justice? And people will say, well, you got to do that, Tommy, because there's got to be a way, right? You have to be able to go after these criminals. And I agree with you, man. I really do. I think that criminals need to be in prison. I needed to be in prison. But I sure as shit didn't need 4 more points and a felony for a crime I didn't commit. But you know what? You're a convict. Last story along these lines. I'm at FCI Phoenix, and they come into my unit and they said, the FBI is here to see you. And you know what happens? Every inmate in the room goes like this and turns and looks at you like, why is the FBI here to see you, you rat scumbag? So as a convict, you say, I'm not going down there to see him unless I can take at least one white guy with me. Because that way, the white guy can say, Tommy didn't rat out anybody. The guy was asking this question, that question. And they know they're going to let that person in with me. Because if they don't, I'm just going to refuse and go to the hole. Right? I'm not going to answer the question. So I go down there with a friend who was my cellmate at the time. And the guy said to me, have you ever been in a mechanics bank? And I said, I have. He said, did you rob it? I said, I did. I had immunity going back X number of years. It was part of my plea agreement. And I said, yeah, I robbed a mechanics bank. And he said, can you tell me about the bank? I said, it's in California. He said, can you tell me anything about the robbery? Anything that made it unique? And I said, the teller was black. It was a black woman, right? Just happened to be a defining characteristic of that bank, right? That's something that will definitely tie. And he said, how much did you get? And I spit out what I thought I got away with. And I said, I don't intend to clean up every bank robbery that you guys haven't figured out, right? This wasn't part of my deal. So I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, do you know why I'm asking you this? And I said, no. And he said, because somebody already pled guilty to it. How's that? Because somebody pled guilty to the bank I robbed. You know why he pled guilty to the bank that I robbed? Because he's a convicted felon. And he's sitting in a room with these assholes, and he looks at the picture and he goes, God, it kind of does look like me. And they say to him, with your record, if you take this to the box and you lose, you're looking at 25 years. You plead guilty today, I can get you 60 months. And a man who did not rob that bank pled guilty to it. The system's broken beyond belief when people plead guilty to shit because their life in the past isn't going to allow them to have a fair trial or to even have a fair shake. If you can't afford a lawyer, one will be provided for you by the state. You've heard this bullshit at every single investigation you've ever heard, right? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to have an attorney present at questioning, right? You have a right to stop answering questions at any time. If you agree to talk to us at any time, you can stop answering questions, right? All of these things. If you get that lawyer provided for you by the state, that person is going to probably have handled about 19 cases by the time they get to you. Not one of them will have ever gone to trial. You see, what a public defender does is pleads you out to everything. They go in and they say to you, you're going to get caught for this. You're looking at 15 years. I can probably get you 6. The question becomes, how many times has somebody pled guilty to a crime they haven't done because of their past? I know for a mother-loving fact it happened once. And to this dude's credit, he sent me a picture of his family at Christmas time. For real. You know, you do the picture with your dog and your cat and your whole family, and you're in front of a tree, or you're all wearing sweaters or whatever. Now, he sent me a picture of his family, and it just said, thank you. And he put $25, might have been 20, on my books. Hey, Shimmy Duwabi, good to see you, man. Isaac Brusso, I like it. So, hey, Wharton, glad to have you here, bud. This is a broken system. And the fact that the guy put money on my books, man, he didn't have money. He didn't. I'm not being disrespectful. If the guy's listening, no, but didn't have a grill, right? Neither did his significant other. They looked like their drug of choice was probably methamphetamine. And this is a guy that's done a lot of dirt. And he just thought, well, I'd rather be in jail for 6 years for something I didn't do than fight this and get 25 for something I didn't do. How many times today is that going to happen in this country? Huh? I got an idea, just a simple one. How about if the defendant never makes an appearance in the courtroom? Maybe don't let the jury see that the guy's black, right? Or maybe don't let the jury see that the guy's tattooed from his neck down, because you're automatically guilty. I mean, if you got ink and it doesn't have color on it, you got that in prison, right? It's all a bunch of horse shit, our American injustice system. The land of the free and the home of the slave. I'm telling you. And so here's your public defender. You're going to call down to the public defender's office, and you're going to say, listen, man, they're accusing me of this mechanics bank, and I didn't do it. I'm telling you I didn't do it. And they say, great, can you get me an alibi of where you were that day? And the dude goes, I don't even know what the frick day it is. No, if you ask me where I was the day I robbed a bank, I'll probably remember that I robbed a bank that day. But if you ask me where I was the day some other jackass robs a bank, I'm not going to remember where the hell I am. I was doing a ton of dope. I was running and gunning. Sometimes I'd go 3 days without sleeping, or I'd sleep at a hooker's house or a friend's house or whatever, couch surfing. I don't know where this guy couldn't say where he had been. So he sits down with his defense attorney the day he shows up, right, to change his plea. Never met his attorney before then. And if you think that sounds crazy, that's de rigueur, man. Colors don't make tattoos okay. It just means that they were done on the street. Prison tattoos do not have ink do not have colored ink. We have to make the ink inside. You make it by burning different stuff, grease, whatever, and then catching the soot, mixing the soot into water, adding a little oil, shaking it up, and that becomes the ink that you do this with. But you can't make colored ink. So prison tattoos tend to be black, right? There's not a lot of color in prison tattoos. And I have been pulled over in a car and had the officer walk up and say to me, where'd you do your time? Now, am I the smartest dude for getting a half sleeve? Probably not. But it's a jump to say, because I don't have color, maybe I just don't like color. I mean, there are guys that do the thug makeover on the street. They pay to get tattoos that don't have any color. But you're going to get a defense attorney who thinks you did it. And when you're not there, that attorney and the prosecuting attorney, they're having lunch together. Hell, they might even do yoga together. See, they're all friends. And the most effed up things happen, right? You're getting ready to get sentenced. And I've had this happen to me, where your lawyer comes in and says, hey, I got good news. You go, yeah, what's that? The prosecutor owes me one, right? So I know you're looking at 65 months, but this one owes me one. She said she'll let you plead out to 28. And you're happier than a pig in shit, right? You're going to plead out to the 28. You just saved your ass. Well, how does that happen? Well, it happens because the previous time they went to court, The defense attorney went in and said, hey, this guy Tommy's a good dude. And honestly, I think he might be innocent on this thing, man. You got to help me. And they go, no, this guy's got a long record. No, I don't think he did this one. Yeah, well, we're not giving you any love on this, but I'll owe you one. What? If they say the prosecutor owes me one, it's because the guy that went before me got up the tailpipe. They cut these deals like they're playing poker. Yeah, give me 5 years on this one and we'll work on the next one. I'll make it up to you on the next one. How do you think the guy that just got the 5 years feels about the fact that the next guy is going to get a break? I married an attorney. I married a defense attorney. And we were together about 7 years. And I got to see how this stuff works. And it is one of the ugliest things that you would ever want to see. It's disgusting. And it's a game. Brennan knows. Brennan, if you haven't been following this, is the prosecutor from the Karen Reed murder trial. Brennan knows this woman didn't do this. In his opening statement, he said, Karen Reed, in an interview, admitted she hit him with her car. He can't play it. He can reference it, but he can't play that in his opening statement. And what she said was, this is what he said, I'm thinking to myself, he didn't look mortally wounded. That sure as shit does sound like she hit him, doesn't it? But if you listen to what really happened, when she showed up the following morning and saw him laying on the ground dead, she thought to herself, could I have hit him? I mean, he doesn't even look mortally wounded. In fact, she dropped down and started doing CPR on him because the only marks were on his face. He didn't look mortally wounded. But what he says in his opening statement is, she said, could I have hit him? I mean, maybe I hit him, but he didn't look mortally wounded. Well, that kind of sounds like she said that the night she hit him. Words mean things. How you say them really changes what they mean. Do you think Brennan didn't know she was talking about the morning? He listened to it. Every other swinging dick that listened to it thought she's not talking about the night that happened. Right? No. However, Brennan doesn't have a problem with that. He doesn't have a problem twisting this truth. He doesn't have a problem if he hires a expert witness and the expert witness goes, no way this dude got hit by a car. Do you think he goes, it's time to end this case? Shit, no. He finds a new witness, a new expert witness, pays them. The prosecution, they also bought a Lexus. Huh? Both of them bought new Lexuses to trash, to try to, a lot of money getting spent. I'm sure that if Karen Reed had gotten a public defender, the state would have been happy to spend $6 million on her case to prove her innocence, right? Are you seeing how broken this is? Statistically speaking, most jurors make up their mind on whether or not the man is innocent or guilty within about 3 minutes of seeing him. Tattoos, right? All of those. That's why they let the person come in a suit, right? Because if the guy comes in wearing stripes and handcuffs, right, belly chains, he's already guilty. You look at him and you go, that son of a, he's guilty. Look at him, he's shackled. Have you ever wondered why they let the inmate dress like somebody from the street? Or why they don't bring up every bad thing the person's ever done in their past? Because that would be prejudicial. Just let's say you robbed the bank and they bring up the fact that you've robbed a bank in the past. Well, then automatically, if you're accused of robbing another one, you did it, right? The fact that you did it once proves that you will do it again. So they won't allow testimony like that to come in. That's fair, isn't it? It hooks up the defendant. But if the defendant takes the stand, if you want to get up there and say, I didn't do this, now the guy can say, hey, Tommy, have you ever robbed the bank before? Yeah, I have. How many have you robbed, Tommy? I don't know. More than 5? Yeah, maybe. More than 10? I'm dead, right? I'm dead. No jury's going to believe I didn't do this one. They're also not going to believe I'm not a drug addict. They're not going to believe I'm not selling drugs. It just doesn't work that way. So the system's broken to beat shit, right? It's depressing. It is broken to beat crap. And now there are people that say, I would very much like you to cover the Diddy case. I have absolutely no faith in the legal system at this point. It literally makes me sick. It does. Now, Diddy's a scumbag. Make no mistake, Diddy's a scumbag. And a lot of the things that Diddy is accused of, he has done. I believe that wholeheartedly. But that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't. What matters is Diddy is now so bad a human being that if they got to cheat a little to convict him, they'll do it. And as a country, we'll be cool with that, right? Who cares if they got to bend the rules a little? For instance, remember the book that they went in and got? What if it really did say legal mail across the top of it? Put a 2 in the chat if you would be really angry if they read Diddy's legal mail. Now, keep it in mind, they read that, right? And it told them that he was trying to bribe people, that there were people he wanted to bribe, there was people he wanted to threaten. He had a hit list of what he wanted to do with all of these people, allegedly. That's what they found in the raid. It's okay, right? It's okay to use that, isn't it? How about if it's you? How about if it's you? But they've decided you're a scumbag, right? If they've already decided you're a bad human being, is it okay? Because right now, you can go make a video about me and call me anything you want on planet Earth because it's already been decided. Right? I was a con man. Ipso facto, I am still a con man. I was a bank robber. Ipso facto, I'm still a scumbag that would rip off anybody. Yeah? Funny, all of the agencies that have been called have resoundingly said, we got nothing on you. That doesn't mean they wouldn't like to incarcerate me. One of them was thoroughly bummed out that he didn't have anything on me. In fact, what he said was, but I'll find something. There's nothing there, but they're going to keep looking until they find something. It's a broken system. And some of you are probably going, man, this sucks because you've been on the boat for a period of time and you didn't necessarily buy into the long con video. Right? You don't think I'm a guy that says the C word every 2 minutes when I'm talking to women or any other stuff that I've been accused of. But what if you don't know me? Huh? What if you don't know me? There are things that we could do to fix this system. One would be to not let the people see the defendant. Now, if he wants to take the stand or she wants to take the stand, that would be different. That would be completely different. Because obviously you have to see whether or not, they look like they're being honest or whatever. But there are people on the jury who are going to say, he's black, he's guilty. I promise you. That's the way it goes. In fact, studies have been done. So many studies have been done. And you can go and look at them online where they show you short clips of film and they ask you, what did you see in the crime? And the number of times people say, I saw a black man doing X, Y, and Z when the person that was doing it is white would lead you to believe that eyewitness testimony is horrific. It is so inaccurate. And if you have racial biases or if you have any kind of biases that you're carrying with you from childhood or from early adolescence or whatever, it's going to infect everything that you do. It's going to affect the decisions that you make. They try to find jurors who are not biased, right? Now, I can never serve on a jury, right? I'm a con man. I couldn't be trusted to serve on a jury. But if I could, right? And I got called in and they said, do you know anything about the Diddy case? Right? And they don't know who I am, right? They're calling me Brett. They're not calling me Tommy. And they don't know who I am or what I've done. Theoretically, I could go, no, I don't know anything about this. I mean, I know the guy, I heard that he got arrested or whatever. I know a shitload about that Diddy case, right? And I could get myself onto that jury just because I want to see that dude in prison. That's a bad system, man. It's a bad system. I do happen to love God. I do. Lisa Miller says, I hate to admit it, but aren't we all a little biased? You're damn right we are. Every one of us to some degree. I'll be the first to tell you. Do you know why I shouldn't be on a jury? Huh? Because I have spent time in prison. It would be very difficult for me to say, yeah, my vote is going to send that man or that woman to prison. I'll be honest with you. Even if they did it, I don't know that I wouldn't want my vote. And if I, God forbid, that I could be on a jury and they said, hey, Tommy, the first thing I would say to them is, you don't want me on your jury. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to convict. I'm not. I know how often people plead the shit that they didn't do. Hey, Chicka Cherry Cola, good to see you. I know how often the judicial system screws people because of their nationality, their religion, their race. Look up the crack laws. Look at how many black guys and some black women who got sent to prison. They would have the same amount of dope. I'm a white guy. I get caught with 2 ounces of coke. White people tend to sniff it. So I got 2 ounces of powdered cocaine. Keep in mind, I can go home, mix it with baking soda, cook it up, and make crack. But if you get caught with the same size bag that I do, 1 ounce, we each got 1 ounce, they're going to charge you with 10 ounces of crack, even though it only weighs 1 ounce. Why? Well, because it was so much more dangerous, right? Because crack it was so much, no, keep it real. Because it was an industry that had been taken over by blacks. Blacks were selling it. Blacks were making a ton of money on it. And they weren't having it. There wasn't a problem when bootlegging was done, right? Because it was Italians and it was Irish people and right, all the bootleggers, look at the Kennedys. Right? Well, that was cool because all of the criminals were white. But with crack, guys were starting to ball. Guys were starting to make really big money and they were black guys. So the laws were 10 to 1 and in some places 20 to 1. So I get caught with an ounce of cocaine, I'm looking at 4 or 5 years in prison. My black friend gets caught with an ounce of crack. They're going to charge him with over a pound, right? A pound. And he's going to go away for 25 years. Now, enough people with souls started to fix this, started to go and say, hey, this is racist. And a lot of the people who were able to file and say, they got kicked out. A lot of them got released. They tried to fix it. Do you know that inmates get experimented on? Do you know that they used to inject federal inmates with LSD to see what would happen to them? And not micrograms. They were giving them quarter grams, half grams. Whitey Bulger, you can look it up, see what he got paid. His checks, he was getting $56 a month, which is not why he did it. Whitey was rich. He did it because they said, we will give you 6 months off your sentence. You could have injected me with gasoline to get 6 months off of my sentence. There's not a drug on planet Earth I wouldn't have allowed you to put into my body, including PCP or any of the other scary shit, to get 6 months off my sentence. Tell me who you want me to kill. See, this is the problem, right? When you get somebody into prison, there's no such thing as, consent. I consented to work at Unicor, right? You're damn right I did. I used to show up at 5 o'clock in the morning every single day with an application in my hand. I had already filled one out, but I was waiting to see somebody get fired, somebody that went in high or whatever. And I was with 20 or 30 other guys waiting. And every day someone would get fired and we would all go, hey man, take me, begging to work for 16 cents an hour, right? I can't consent to that. The FOIA files detail the horrible things that they did to prisoners. Sure, look at just the Muskegee, what is it, the Muskegee Airmen, what was it? I'm saying that wrong. But, or the syphilis experiments that they did on black people to see if they would make it so that black inmates couldn't reproduce. They would sterilize them. We have a seriously jacked up legal system. We really do. And there's nobody that's doing shit to fix it. And that's been okay for a really long time, right? It really has. It's been okay for a really long time. But you see, now there are more people watching court cases than watched Seinfeld. Now there are more people who find this genre of videos more entertaining than anything else. And the world is starting to realize just how stacked the deck is, right? This Karen Reed trial. I had friends of mine that don't get into any of this stuff, right? Think I'm an idiot for getting into this stuff. And I asked a couple of them, I said, could you do me a favor, man? Watch 4 hours of this. Even if it takes you 3 days, just watch 4 hours of this, because I would like to get your opinion on something. And most agreed to do it. I got a couple of them. And I said, what did you notice? I mean, did you take anything away from it? I know that you didn't watch enough of the Karen Reed trial to figure out who's guilty or not. But is there anything that jumped out at you? Every single one of them said, the judge will not let the defense get a question in. Doesn't happen to the prosecution. Bev, they call her Auntie Bev, the woman that is the judge in this case, is so in the tank for the prosecution, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. They'll say object, she'll say sustained before they even say what the objection is about. This is how it normally goes. I say, I object. Then they say, on what grounds? Well, he's leading the witness, Your Honor. Now, if it happens to be attorneys that know the judge or they're really good at what they do, they will say stuff like, objection, leading the witness, right? Take care of it all at once. Doesn't have to happen in Bev's court. No, they just have to say, I object. And she says sustained every single freaking time. In fact, when she doesn't, it will shock you. Everybody is in on this. Everybody. From day one. Think about this, people. You show up, you're a cop. There's a guy laying dead on the lawn, and every cop there says, someone kicked his ass. Look at his face. They were arguing whether or not it was fists or if he had gotten hit with a cocktail glass. But his eyes were blacked out. His body's perfect. Nothing happened to his body, just his head. You wouldn't say, I'm going to go in the house. See if he got in a fight in the house. Even if he didn't get in a fight in the house. Maybe somebody from the house kicked his ass as he's dead on their lawn. Didn't go down like that, though. They never entered the house. And they haven't since. You see the people who lived in that house, oddly enough, gave away their dog. The night that dog didn't bite John O'Keefe, they magically rehomed the dog to somebody in Vermont. Odd, right? And then they sold that friggin' house as fast as they could. To this day, no one has gone in that house to check for blood, to look for anything. It is the thick blue shield. We saw a woman that said, I watched these guys in the Sally Port. She comes back the next time and goes, yep, I was wrong. I saw the timeline. It was a false memory on my part. If you said, I might have seen them there. That could be a false memory, right? I saw them there for a suspiciously long period of time, hanging out behind the vehicle. That was a memory you just came up with? Bullshit. Sorry, I don't buy it. The Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis was a study conducted between 32 and 72 by the United States Public Health Service. And all of the people were black. Why? Well, because they didn't matter as much, right? I promise you they still don't. Not in the eyes of the legal system, and not with how they're treated once they get inside. And anybody that tells you they're treated the same is a racist or they're a liar, because they're not treated the same way. When I was in the special management unit, the very first day that we went outside, they had these weird stairways, and you're handcuffed. So you got two cops holding you on either side. Your hands are behind your back, and they walk you, and the stairs go like stairs in a house. So you got to keep going up landings and around and around. It's a stupid prison. It's designed poorly. But my friend, the guy they called Stank, who's a black dude, he was walking about 5 steps ahead of me. So he's above me. And the cops behind him, right? The cops who are holding me are directly behind him. And the guy says, "Hey, N-word," with a hard R. "You fart in my face, and I'm going to beat you with this nightstick until you're dead. You hear me, N-word?" And my friend turned around and looked at me and goes, "Hey, we're not in Toto. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto." And he gave me a big smile and a laugh. This wasn't 1970, right? This shit was 2018? No, 2014. I was in the smoke. It's rampant. You'll hear them say things to black guys that if someone said in the real world, they'd be canceled, but not in there. Our judicial system is broken beyond recognition, and nobody is going to do dick about it. They're not. So I will probably comment on some trials. There'll be some things that I'm going to talk about. I have a difficult time looking at these things as if it's not a predetermined decision. Karen Reed is a very interesting case because she was supposed to be found guilty, plain and simple. This should have been a laydown. All of the cops lined up, right? They did everything right from the word go. They didn't go into the murder house. They didn't accuse anybody. They didn't take DNA swabs or do any such shit. No, they were covering it up from the very second that they got called out to the scene. I'll say it again. The reconstruction, no matter how fast they hit that, right, ballistics gel dummy, same weight, arm, all the real, no matter how hard they hit them, they couldn't get a rip into the sweatshirt at any level. None. You understand? So how is it friggin' possible that he had these huge, deep scratches? Well, I'll tell you what isn't possible. It didn't happen without the help of a dog. A German Shepherd that got rehomed shortly after he attacked Mr. O'Keefe. As the prosecution is going through this case, right, and the people tell me us black folks in prison have to count for something. After all, we make up most of the inmates. There's a lot of truth to that. There's an awful lot of truth to that. Black males are 6% of America and commit over 40% of American homicides annually. 91% of those homicides are of the black males. That could be why they are treated differently. Our Lawrence sounds good, but here's the thing. So let's say I kill somebody, right? I kill somebody. I walk into that jail. I should be treated just like the black guy that killed somebody too, right? Forget the conviction part of it. Once we get in there, we're just two inmates, right? No, it doesn't work that way. I will be treated differently than my black friend, I assure you. It's just how it works. And statistically speaking, the number of people who get convicted for murders that they didn't do, your odds are a hell of a lot higher of that happening to you if you're black than if you're white. Now, we incarcerate people. As of this moment, America is just 4% of the population of the planet, but it is 26% of the prison population of the planet, which means we incarcerate more than any other country by a damn stretch. Look at the number of people that end up on death row. White people are killing people too, I assure you. but the odds that you end up on death row for killing someone increase by a factor of about 10 if you happen to be black. I understand what you're saying. And a lot of the fact that there are more crimes being committed, we created, right, a society where you don't give people opportunities, right? And when you don't, people are going to take what opportunities they can. I've never been mad at people that smuggle drugs across the Mexican border. I'm not. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're trying to create a life for their family. Their goal isn't to come across and kill people. That's their boss that's trying to do that. But the foot soldier that's running it across the border just wants to be able to put his, food on the tables of the people that he cares about. And one trip across that border will make him 6 years of what he could make being a laborer in his country. There always will be somebody ready to take that risk. And if we weren't the largest consumers of dope on planet Earth, well, then there wouldn't be so much money in smuggling it across that border, right? We do more dope than any other place on Earth. The freedom of this country, right? And when I started the lifeboat, I was more anti-legalization than any man in history. And now I think the only way that we fix this is to legalize everything. Freaking everything. I know it sounds like we're tapping out, but the truth is what we're doing is we're putting the illegal elements out of business. If you look at the statistics, right, the number of people in this country that say that they use drugs recreationally on a daily or a weekly basis, the majority of this country doesn't think drugs ought to be illegal. Then why are they illegal? I don't get it. If most of us think that drugs being legal would make the world safer in a republic or a democracy or whatever the hell you think we are, you would think the people representing us might say, maybe we're going to cut back on the war on drugs. And if you go, oh, Tommy, you got to fight the war on drugs. Well, here's the thing. Our largest budget, right? Our largest budget in our country is for the military, right? And I guess that makes sense, right? We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice and to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense. It's right in the preamble, right? To promote the general welfare and to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. It's right in there. I can understand why that's our largest budget. Our second largest budget is the war on drugs. Can you tell me of any victories we've had in it? Overdoses is the number one cause of death in this country. Maybe we need to change what we're doing. Huh? There are states that still believe if you give Narcan out to people, there are folks who have never done heroin, who have never done fentanyl, who go, holy shit, they're giving away free Narcan. I'm going to start slamming dope. If you're stupid enough to believe that, get a tack hammer and start whacking yourself in the head with it. Or needle exchange programs. They're going to give out needles to addicts. And you go, why would they do that? Because a junkie doesn't trust anyone who's not a junkie. And if you get someone that says, I just don't want you to have to use a needle you used 500 times, and I don't want you to catch AIDS by getting scared, just here's some free needles. And here's some shampoo, right? Here's some soap. And they make contact. And then the next thing you know, a junkie is trusting someone who's not a junkie. And now you can say stuff like, hey man, have you tried Suboxone? Are you familiar with this? Because we might be able to get you off of this shit. But try saying that to someone in the beginning and they're going to run like hell thinking you're a cop. Needle exchange programs have done amazing things in this country, and I used to be against them. But if you believe that ever in the history of drug addiction, someone said, I'm going to start shooting heroin because they're giving away free needles, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. It's not happened. Not a once, I assure you. Harm reduction is something that I thought was stupid. R. Lawrence, with all due respect, you're a moron, and a racist moron at that. I'm sorry, but you're a moron. The idea that the black race is the only race on the planet that isn't responsible for its own destiny is killing it. No, you're wrong. In fact, you're heinously wrong, and you're ridiculously uneducated. Maybe do a little reading about what the legal system, how it works for people of color. Has nothing to do with the fact that they're not taking responsibility. It has to do with the fact that the schools that they go to don't give them the same opportunities as the schools that white folks go to. Bottom line. Anyway, if Lawrence says something racist again, somebody hit him with a wrench. People like you make me sick, dog. I'm just keeping it real. People like you make me sick. Hey, and the problem in Portland, Oregon is that they went like this and decriminalized everything without so much as a plan. You understand that? Without so much as a plan. Thank you, Johnny Scoville. Well played. They did it without a plan. Tell you what, go look at Uruguay and tell me how legalization is doing. Go look at places that came up with a plan first. Oregon didn't come up with a plan first. In fact, what Oregon did was literally one of the most ridiculous things. They bought tents and set them up with nobody in them. And because of what they did with the legalization and the decriminalization, every homeless person on planet Earth started heading there. You can see miles of abandoned cars of people that went out there to join the tent cities. Oregon caused its own problem. Legalization wasn't the issue. You can't legalize without a plan. It has to be done in a way that makes sense. And there are places around the world that have done it successfully. Uruguay is amazing. Look at it. Look at some of the places that have done it. It works well. I do like the idea of vouchers, giving the opportunity for people of any nationality and any race to choose where they send their kids. So that's a beautiful thing. If you think that the school you're sending your kid to isn't doing a good job, you should be able to shop. That's the idea, right? The schools that suck will go out of business. The schools that do a good job will educate people, and they'll educate people of any color because the government will be handing you a check where you can pick where you send your school. I'm sure that the guy that my brother just smacked with a wrench wouldn't like that. God forbid, right? We treat them like human beings. That might suck, wouldn't it? Huh? That might suck. Do you know how we build prisons, Lawrence, you moron? Huh? We check illiteracy rates in the 4th grade, and it will tell you how many prisons you need to build. That's how we figure it out. So if we happen to have way more of one race than another in prison, it's because in the 4th grade, there's way more of that race illiterate. Think that's their fault? Then you're an asshole, and an uneducated one at that. Sorry. Not sorry. All right, folks. Yeah. You know, Amsterdam has not had legal drugs. It's a misnomer. Amsterdam decriminalized weed in small amounts and successfully made weed uncool, right? In our country, the fact that weed is illegal and the fact that it's, you know, it's always been this kind of a cool thing. It's a counterculture thing. And we tie it to, you know, the 60s and partying. And it's just this, you know, this sort of club. And the only thing you need to join the club is being willing to smoke a little weed. In Amsterdam, what happened is your parents all smoked dope. It's legal. It's not, there's no mystery to it. So kids didn't jump on board. Every place where they have fully legalized, what you see is a spike in the use of drugs, right? You do. You see a spike. That spike lasts about 7 years. And then what happens is the kids that are coming up watch what is happening. I remember I used to go into the hood all the time because that's where you cop dope. And I would go into the hood and I'd see a youngster and I'd go, hey, man, I'm looking for Lenny. You know where he is? That dude's a junkie, man. We don't talk to him. 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds. Dude's strung out on heroin, dude. I'm not talking about him. There's something amazing when you see things, right? When you see what drugs do to people, right? That's education. It's sad, but it's the truth. We would take a shot to be sure. There would be a break-in period of about 7 years where we would probably see a spike in some of the drugs that people were doing. What we would also see is the black market disappear. The black market disappear, right? If you look at the crime in this country, 80% of it is tied to drugs. If you made it so that the black market, heroin is about $1 a gram if you go to the right place on this earth. I promise you, $1 a gram. But you get it across that U.S. border, and now it's worth a shit pile of money. Right? If you take that away, if you take away the ability for the illegal elements to make money on the substances and you regulate it, America doesn't think we can win the war on drugs. They're scared shitless that if they give up on the war on drugs, the second largest budget, trillions of dollars, will be gone. They know they can't win the war on drugs, but they can fund the war on drugs. And all these shitheads don't want to give up their little fiefdoms, like all of these cops all over the U.S. who have been putting in to get urban assault vehicles. They look like tanks because you need that. Yeah, you need that. A lot of drug dealers are out there and also having urban assault vehicles. They just, every year you have to spend the money that the federal government gives you or you won't get money next, right? Yeah. Sorry, folks. I'm sure I sound like a bitter man, but I love the people in this country. I love the amber waves of grain. I love the purple mountain majesty. I love looking at the stars and stripes. But the government in this country I hate, and the legal system in this country I despise. And it's a difficult thing. It's like that red pill. You know what I'm saying? If you're aware of what's really going on, it would make you sick. Unless, of course, you're one of those dudes that just hates the black man, Lawrence. Yeah, they commit all the crimes, right? And they won't take responsibility. I assure you, they're doing their responsibility right now. Lock the hell up. This world is corrupt, says Lisa. Yeah. Yeah. Cindy G says it is in the province level Ontario here. Our government tests in grade 3 and 6 and 10 have to pass, proving they can read and write. Well, in our country, since we make more prisons than anyone else, right? We incarcerate more than a quarter of all people on earth who are incarcerated are in the United States, even though we only make up 4% of the population. We crank it out. And we know how to do that. We check illiteracy rates in the 4th grade. Instead of building prisons, maybe we teach them to read. Well, see, shit schools, right? In inner city, underprivileged parts of town, they're not trying to teach anybody to read, and they can't get fired, right? The unions will keep them in there even if the scores are dog shit. And this has been going on for decade after decade after decade. It's that they won't take responsibility, right, Lawrence? It's that they haven't had any opportunities at all. We've seen to that. We'd rather hand them, right? And that's any minority. We would rather just hand them a check than actually see them start to build themselves up, right? It's nice to have a group of people that you can guarantee will vote in whatever direction if you're handing them cash. And we're such a sick piece of shit society at this point, right? But there's not much we won't do for votes. All of those people that didn't want the wall, right? All of them voted for the wall 4 years earlier. All of them. You can look it up. They stood on the floor of Congress talking about how we needed a wall until it was the other side, because they didn't want to give the other side a win. And while they refused to give the other side a win, the number one cause of death in our country went from heart disease to drug overdose. And now your kid is about 5 times more likely to die from an overdose of drugs than they are in a car wreck. We're killing it in this country. We're hitting it out of the park. I love the people. I love the amber waves of green. I love the purple mountain majesty, but I'm not really in love with much else anymore. Sorry, people. Sorry. Between now and the next time I see you, maybe do a little self-harm. And you know what? If you hate black people, learn to hate me and stay away from my channel.